your backstory with racing and how you got into it.
My backstory with racing. Well, first, thank you for having me, Pax.
Of course.
And for us, I mean, anybody that knows, my family and our history, we've been racing and off-road in the desert since the 1960s. My daddy did it. My brothers did it. I did it. And then for me, I caught one of those unlucky breaks. My father, who raced in the desert all his life, and my brothers used to ride in the passenger seat with him. Mm-hmm. My dad was actually injured in a race and injured his eye. And so when I turned 15, when I was supposed to ride with my daddy, my dad wasn't racing anymore. And so I got to drive. Nice. So it was one of those things where it doors and roads, how life happens. And so I got to drive a race car at 15 instead of ride with my dad. And that's how I started racing. I grew up racing out here, Southern Nevada, Snore is what it's called. All around here, all around Mexico, doing the Baja races. And then as I got older, went to college, did my college thing, played college football, played college basketball, would race in the summers and keep repeating. And when I graduated from college, there's a thing called the NASCAR Truck Series. It was founded by a bunch of off-road racers. Walker Evans was my mentor and the guy I drove for. He was one of the founders. And I graduated and he said, come drive this truck. And so I came and drove this truck. And that's how I started my NASCAR career, was just come drive this truck.
What was your favorite, NASCAR memory event?
Pax, I did it for I drove NASCAR for 23 years.
Yes.
I had my first NASCAR races in 1997. I retired in 2020. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of great memories.
Right.
There's a lot of bad memories too. I mean, there's a lot of, fortunately, some I don't remember, which is the good thing. You hit your head hard enough. For me, I think one of the coolest things was, always pops in first when somebody asks me this, is when you can make your daddy cry. That's a special thing when you can make, and we won the NASCAR truck race in 2003 in Las Vegas. 80,000 people showed up that day. Huge, most attended truck race in history. Massive crowd, of course, and supporting, us. I mean, that was a massive, massive deal. And Dad in Victory Lane, seeing him tear up, and I was like, that's kind of cool.
Right.
So I mean, that was very special. 4 wins at Texas. I mean, I got to drive for Roger Penske. I got to drive for Richard Childress. I won races for Richard Childress. I mean, there's so many good ones and so many great ones. But to me, the one that starts out is just Vegas. I mean, winning my home track in Vegas was pretty special. Anybody that remembers Dale Jr. was, of course, the greatest fan favorite of our time. So I got the pole for that race, and a man named Owen Kearns. I'm walking across the stage for introductions. Second goes across the stage, and now it's my turn to go across the stage. And I start to walk on the stage, and I take one step, and the crowd just starts to erupt. I walked off the stage, and I stood next to Owen, Mr. Kearns, who is the NASCAR Truck Series PR guy. And he looks at me and goes, Brendan, that's for you. And I go, it is? And I look in the crowd. I mean, people had pictures of our truck, and they had our names spelled out, and it was so surreal, so cool. It was just like, oh my God. And like I said, all my high school friends, all my grade school friends, all these friends were there, and it was so much fun to see that and be in that moment.
Do you ever still get that urge to go back on the track?
No, you don't even need to finish that question. No. Of course, the race was here this last weekend, and we had 53 teams staying at the South Point. Mm-hmm. Tons of teams staying at the South Point. And that is one of the main, do you miss it? I miss the people.
Yeah.
A lot of great friends that were crew members for me over the years that are still friends to this day, and miss a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I do not care to get back into a NASCAR stock car, and don't miss it at all.
So you do desert racing now.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that transition like from the track to desert?
Well, it was desert first. Mm-hmm. So I started in the desert.
Right.
And then driving NASCAR all those years, you didn't have time. You race you're busy 40 weeks a year.
Yeah.
So I would come home and race a desert race when I could. Mm-hmm. I would drive a trophy truck here or there. I'd drive a Class 1 here or there. I do race the desert when I could, but couldn't do it often. Mm-hmm. The only one I used to be able to make was every year the Best in the Desert race, Henderson race, because it was December after the season ended. Yeah. So I could always come home and find somebody, hey, anybody want me to drive? So I didn't get to do it often,
right.
But that was one of the things that made retirement so easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
I loved what I did in NASCAR. It was a great time. I had an amazing career. Maybe not as good as I wanted it to be, but it still had an amazing time. But when I retired, I was more happy than anything because I knew I could come home and I got to go race my dad. As soon as I came home, I looked at my dad and I said, okay, I'm buying a Class 1 car. And he looked and shook his head at me, and I bought a Class 1 car, and we go race in Mexico, and I love it. There's nothing to me like racing Baja.
Right.
And so I'm so happy racing back where I love to race.
Right. Where are you now? How's retirement life? Where are we at now?
I screwed up retirement more than anybody ever. I own one of my companies, City Light Shine.
Yes.
It's a local. We're basically a distillery, and racing NASCAR all those years. I'm a really bad cliche, right? I'm a NASCAR driver, and I make moonshine. Now, before everybody kind of chuckles and goes, "What the hell?" I drank everybody's moonshine over the years in NASCAR because it is very prominent out there. And my distiller is a man named Mike Dolan, who was a NASCAR official for 25 plus years. Known him my whole career, we're friends. And the only guy's moonshine I ever liked was Mike Dolan's. And when I was getting close to retirement, Dolan was trying to look to the next chapter of his life. And so I said, hey, come on. We moved him out to Vegas, and we make his Southern recipe. He's a Wilkes County guy. That's where he was making it from. Anybody knows moonshine, all you rebel guys, go ahead and do your Google thing and Google Wilkes County moonshine. It's one of the most famous counties in the world of moonshine. And he's a Wilkes County Southern recipe, and we do it right here in Las Vegas. I have a chemical company that I started shortly after the distillery. I sell like kitchen cleaners and kitchen chemicals, sanitizers and things like that, disinfectants. And during COVID, of course, that exploded. I mean, it became very big. But so that was just, something I already had, and it grew. And then there's a company inside that called Justice Brothers, which is automotive chemicals. My family, we also have Mesquite Gaming, not just South Point. We have Mesquite Gaming, and that's part of me and my brothers and sisters and a man named Anthony Toti, our partners forever. So that's us that run those. So I do more jobs now than I did when I raced, and I really, really miss having nothing but racing to do. So if there's anything that makes me want to get back in a car, if I could dump everything else, that would be the main thing.
Right.
8-year-old and the 12-year-old, and unfortunately they're both like me in all the worst ways. One of them has my worst ways in one of them has my worst ways in the other, and my 10-year-old is already racing cars in the desert, and I'm not happy about it.
How is it watching him turn into a mini version
It
of
sucks
you?
because now I came up to my mom and dad about a year ago and said, hey, did you feel this way when I did this? And they looked at me and said, oh yeah, we hated you. And I gave them a hug. I said, I love you, I'm sorry. So I'm getting all the payback. All the things they say, I'm getting the payback on.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining me. Brendan Gaughan, everybody.
Thank you very much.